Welcome to episode 8 of the DraftKings Life Podcast with Jason and Meg. I'm Jason Jones, Senior Recruitment Marketing Specialist. What's up, Meg?
Hi, Jonesy. It's finally summer here in upstate New York, so keeping busy. How are you?
I'm fantastic, man. Got a bike about a month ago, so I've been riding through the streets, just exploring the city while it's still pretty empty. How are your ukulele lessons going?
Ukulele is good. I don't know if I'm ready to perform on a stage yet, but we're getting there. I know a couple songs. Speaking of performing, we are excited to welcome Patrick this week, who is a veteran storyteller.
Hi.
Hello, Patrick.
I'm Patrick Cleary. I'm a manager of knowledge management in the engineering department here at DraftKings.
Welcome.
So today we're going to be running through some questions to get to know more about your DraftKings experience. So first, I want to just start seeing how you're doing with quarantine and dealing with the current state of the world right now. I know it's been a pretty crazy couple of weeks, so just wanted to check in.
Yeah, quarantine's been an interesting experience for me. I'm not used to staying home all that much, so I've really relearned how much I love to do things at home, like cooking. I finally made a small office space for myself so that I can separate my work life from my home life. In terms of the state of the world, I think that the events of the past few weeks have really been a long time in the making. And I'm really encouraged in seeing how many attitudes are changing in large and small ways around the world. I mean, when you see even the most conservative of institutions making these long necessary changes, I think there's some hope to be had. But I will say, that said, there's still a lot more to do. So on my end, I've been choosing a charity or an organization or a mutual aid society to donate to once every day. A lot of people forget that so much of activism needs monetary help, and it's something that you can do without even leaving your chair.
Agreed. That's awesome. It's really awesome.
That is awesome. Feel free to send over some links after. I've been trying to keep up with different charities that need help, and I know that they change from kind of week to week, so that would be really helpful. But I'm glad you're hanging in there. Quarantine has been pretty crazy. I can't believe we're already through June, basically. But let's just talk about your position. I'd love if you could walk us through a day in the life at DraftKings.
Yeah, so I'm a knowledge manager, which a lot of people, especially nowadays, don't really know what that term means. It was a field that started in the mid to late 90s. Basically, I'm a corporate librarian, so I'm responsible for the organization of content in the engineering department, which is a decent amount of information to deal with. Every day, I'm finding ways to help developers create and search for and index their documentation and other content so that it frees up more time for them to build our products. Right now, I'm organizing the information in Confluence, which is a wiki-based system that contains a tremendous amount of engineering documentation. It has been in place at DraftKings since the beginning, so it's been growing organically for a lot of years. That means that there's a lot of duplicated, outdated, or difficult to find information. So right now, my main task is reducing the massive documentation, the amount of stuff that's there, while retaining the important stuff that's necessary to do our job.
Nice. That's really cool. So how does someone even get started in your line of work? Is there a degree program at colleges or universities?
Yeah, if you were going to go to school for knowledge management, usually you would get an MLS degree, which is a Master's of Library Science. Here in Boston, there's a great school, Simmons College, which has an MLS that's specifically about knowledge management. It's not a requirement for the position. I have a bachelor's degree in art history, but if you're going to go into something like a more formalized library or government archives, museum, or a law office, an MLS is usually very helpful in landing that kind of a position. I was brought into knowledge management on a team in a consulting firm where I was working as the supervisor of an overnight team of graphic designers. The chief knowledge officer of the company noticed how I was organizing the content that we created for her department, and asked if I had any interest in joining her team as a knowledge editor, where I'd help build overviews of large repositories of documentation. I really found that work rewarding, and that's what I've been doing. I've been a knowledge manager for almost 20 years now.
That's really cool. You know, when
Really
you're
cool.
when you're picking what job you want to be when you grow up, I feel like I didn't even hear about, knowledge management until I came to DraftKings. So the fact that there's programs and things to get you set up for success is really awesome. So I also hear that you're a regular performer for the Moth, which is a nonprofit dedicated to the art and craft of storytelling. So how do you combine your passion for storytelling with your role as a knowledge manager?
So a lot of knowledge management has to do with how people retrieve information. And especially in tech-focused companies, that can feel like what we're doing is cataloging and documenting a lot of dry procedural information. But the way that human beings recall information is we actually have to create a memory every time we have a memory. So there's information stored in your brain, but you actually have to make sense of it. One of the ways that we do that is in telling a story about that information. So if we're going to talk about DraftKings, if you have talked to anybody who's worked at DraftKings for a full year, every person has an NFL season story. So it's either someone who's been at DraftKings since the beginning, where the first time they had NFL draft, it was an exciting time for them. There can be stories about how things went spectacularly well and we all celebrated, or there was an unanticipated issue that made everybody scramble to make things right. When we talk about the Gronk effect, where when Gronk spiked a ball and all of a sudden everybody went to their phones to check to see what was happening with their draft, and the servers went down for a short time in that first season, that's a story. And that's something that actually tells how we do our business, what we do to keep on top of things, and what changes need to be made. So we could present that information as statistics, how many hits were made, what the server lag time was, et cetera. But what people remember more is that there are feelings that come with that, feelings of exhilaration or panic or exhaustion. And that creates a whole story for us as people. So when we're keeping that story and combine that with the statistics, the procedures, et cetera, it helps to cement that information and documentation as what we call knowledge.
Wow, that's that's awesome. So, so going back to the beginning, you started at DraftKings in March of 2019.
Mhm.
What drew you to the company?
I was called by a recruiter, and I'm going to be really honest and say that when she contacted me, she said, "Hi, I'm calling from DraftKings," and I was like, "Oh no, that's not the company that I should work for." I don't know. Like, if anybody starts to talk to me about sports, I know absolutely nothing about it. And anytime I have ever played games or bet, I'm absolutely terrible as that as well. So
Same.
my assumption was I had seen DraftKings. I knew about DraftKings being in Boston, but I figured that you had to be really a mega sports fan or somebody who really loved. At that time, it was all DFS, so that you would have to know fantasy sports. After I talked to Molly, my recruiter, and then there was a discussion with Andrew, who's my boss here, I realized that DraftKings is really at the heart of things an innovator. It's exciting, it's fast paced, and it's really a tech company more than anything else. And that really appealed to me. And then I will say that I was sort of on the fence until I went through my interview process. And out of many different places that I've interviewed over the years, I think that DraftKings was one of the most organized, respectful, and it was very conversational. I felt like I was challenged and respected as a candidate and also as an individual. And I think that's really important.
That's great. That makes me really happy as a recruiter. I know that was a while ago, but we strive to make sure that the candidate experience is first and foremost the most important thing to us. So that's great to hear.
That's awesome. So after joining, did anything surprise you about the culture?
The openness of the culture is really surprising. There's a lot of companies that say that they have open door policies. And when you get there, you realize that that's not necessarily the case. But I mean, for the few doors we actually have in headquarters, they're open all the time, and you can talk to anybody. I mean, I've spoken to people at all levels, from talking directly to Jason, our CEO, all the way through all levels of the company. And I think that that's one of the most happily surprising things about the experience here.
I would agree with you.
So I know you touched on it a little bit, but I'd love if you could talk a bit more about how you collaborate with other teams at DraftKings.
Sure. So inside of engineering, there are different verticals and divisions. So there's the verticals are our products. So we've got DFS and sportsbook and casino. So I sit with the teams within those verticals and divisions, and we create organizational plans for the information they want to keep and to make it accessible for other developers and other stakeholders. And then for other departments, they've reached out to me, and I'm often called in to consult with them. So I'll listen in on, there's been a couple of teams that have had content management systems, and I'll just give advice on how to tag or label and name content and assist with finding vendors. It's pretty varied, but it usually, my input to teams relies heavily on best practices that have to do with content organization and retrieval.
Yeah, very cool. So going back before COVID, how would you have described the DraftKings headquarters?
It's like an ant farm. It's always moving. Like there's always somebody. You never see everybody just static. The headquarters is huge. It's one floor, and when you say one floor, you figure you know what one floor looks like, but it's a huge floor full of lively things that keep in your in-office time fun. So there's more snacks and beverages than you even think there are. Like if you stop on your walk in 5 minutes, you're going to find either a soda or a sports drink or something to eat. There's tons of sports memorabilia around. Everything's themed around sports. But really, it's just the motion. Everybody's always bustling from one desk to another. They're in and out of conference rooms. I don't really think there's ever a time that it's truly slow or quiet there. And it's just a real feeling of getting things done together.
That's a cool analogy, an ant farm. I like that.
So it is Pride Month still, and I know you were on the planning committee. What kinds of things did we do this month, or are we doing, and how are you involved?
I'm really excited about this because we are pulling together a panel of LGBTQIA plus sports team members from Boston and other areas where we have offices. In fact, our Las Vegas office, somebody there is involved in gay rodeo, which I think is fantastic. It's a sport you don't hear much about on the East Coast. So they're going to be speaking on the subject of being an athlete within the community. And then they'll let us know how we can either join teams or support them in other ways. And then just being an athlete, an LGBTQIA plus athlete out in the world.
Awesome.
Really cool.
That's exciting. I'm pumped for that. Great. So my last question, just before we move on a bit, I wanted to see what's one piece of advice you have for a candidate who is looking to join DraftKings.
I would say that I'm from the engineering department, so you need to be prepared. The engineering team is very thorough, so make sure that you know what you are going to be questioned on, know your processes, and really get ready for your interview and be quite prepared for that. But then also really look into what DraftKings does. Have a real curiosity about it, and have a lot of questions prepared for the people you'll be talking to. Because knowing how DraftKings works, how we are organized, what kind of products we have, what we do, that's going to help you find out more about the company and how that can meet your career goals to find out if DraftKings is right for you.
You know, that's something interesting you talked about, because it's definitely bi-directional. You're selling yourself, but the company's also selling them to the candidate. So I'm glad you said that. Thank you.
Awesome. So next, we're going to move on to our 2-minute drill section of the podcast, where we are going to ask you lightning round questions about what makes you Patrick. So Jonesy's going to start a timer for us.
Ready.
Okay. Where are you from?
Wakefield, Massachusetts.
A favorite musical or play?
Little Shop of Horrors is my favorite musical because I'm a puppeteer and it has giant puppets in it. And then there's a straight play called House and Garden, which is two plays that are acted simultaneously, and the audience watches one, then goes over to the other side of the house and watches the other.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Best restaurant in Boston.
I love Tiger Mama, mostly because Tiffany Faison was my favorite chef in Top Chef.
Nice. What do you miss most about the Boston headquarters?
Oh God, everybody. Seeing all the people as we move around.
Same.
Most interesting hobby?
I build puppets. I have about 50 or 60 puppets in my house.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. Do you have a favorite puppet?
So we did a show called Hand to God, where it was about a kid in Sunday school who built a puppet that became possessed by the devil. So there's two puppets. There's the normal puppet and then the puppet when he's the devil. So
That's funny. What's your guilty pleasure snack?
Fruit Loops right out of the box.
Wow. Bold statement. Like it.
Yeah.
Last book you read?
It's called Driving the Deep. It's a science fiction novel by Suzanne Palmer. I went to college with her, and she's now a published author.
Nice.
Oh, I'll have to borrow it. That sounds interesting. Dogs or cats?
My cats are in the office with me right now, so I have to say cats, but I do love dogs.
What show are you streaming right now?
There's a show called The Big Flower Fight, which is about making giant flower sculptures on Netflix.
Oh, I think I saw that. Awesome. Okay, last question. Favorite food?
I'll eat rice for any meal, so any kind of rice.
Nice.
Perfect.
Well, Patrick,
Awesome.
you crushed that. Well under 2 minutes. Well done.
Honestly, that was perfect. Maybe fastest lightning round ever.
Seriously.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It was so cool for me to learn more about what you do. So thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
And we're going to close out our podcast by asking you, Patrick, what's a motto or mantra that you live by every day?
So this is by Quentin Crisp. He is an icon in the gay community. He was out before out was a thing. And my favorite quote by him is, "It's no good running a pig farm badly for 30 years, all the while saying, really, I was meant to be a ballet dancer. By then, pigs will be your style."
Wow, love that.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. And thank you everyone for listening and join us, and be sure to follow us on all things DraftKings Life across all social media channels. And remember, be safe, be kind, and take care.